Greetings in the love and in the light of our infinite prime creator, the Divine Grid Program. Broadcasting deep from within the caverns of I don't think there's any saurian frequencies that will invade this transmission. So let's begin. The ruling gods of the Sumerian pantheon. The Sumerians and Akkadians, my dear and esteemed viewer, the Sumerians and the Akkadians did not call their alien visitors gods. It is in the later cultures that the notion of divine beings filtered into our language and thinking. The Sumerians and the Akkadians called them Ilu, or the lofty ones, from which the Semitic Eli and El of the Hebrew evolved. The Western word God has through usage come to mean superior spiritual beings, far removed from man, and incapable of defect or error. On the other hand, man is considered to be a blemished, incomplete being, burdened with original sin and destined to worship and pay homage to an unreachable God. The Sumerian gods were far from spiritual. Let's just get that out. Let's just establish that. Far from spiritual. They were real, live, physical beings capable of committing serious errors and misjudgments. They could be called supermen if this term could be applied genetically to a saurian race. The Sumerian gods regarded man as a convenience and nothing more. Man, at that particular time, supplied their wants, kept their cities, and provided cannon fodder for their various military ventures. Seriously, not much has changed since those days. The gods could be cruel and unsympathetic masters. They considered humans merely as unruly children, no more important than pets, to be governed ruthlessly and without sentiment. Like I said, not much has changed. These accusations may seem like hyperbole to you, my dear and esteemed viewer. However, we shall see, and as information is revealed in this forthcoming video series, that this was indeed the case. Now, although the term Anunnaki is used generically to apply to all the Proto-Sumerians who came to this planet, it means literally the sons of An, their great god. In the antediluvian period, a large group of these Anunnaki descended from the mothership to colonize Earth. According to the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian myth of creation, 300 of these Anunnaki descended to Earth, while another 300 remained aboard the spaceship, the mothership. These were called the Igigi, and presumably were the technicians of the spacecraft. So let's talk about the senior gods. An, the father of the Anunnaki. An, or Anu, in Akkadian meant he of the heavens, and his name was always written pictographically as a star. He was the great progenitor and senior god who stood above all the other gods. His abode and seat of authority was in the heavens, the orbiting spaceship, or Urusag-an-na, literally the chief city of the heavens. He descended to earth only on special occasions, in time of crisis, or for ceremonial reasons. When on earth, he would stay in his temple, the Iana, or House of An, atop the ziggurat in Uruk, his sacred city. The word ziggurat comes from the Babylonian zakuru and means to be high or raised up. It signifies the top of a mountain or a stage tower, and such a tower provided an artificial platform on the flat Mesopotamian plain. Anu had 3 children, 2 sons, Enlil and Enki, and a daughter, Ninkrusag. The division of authority between his two sons caused much dissension, and the senior god spent much of his time settling disputes between them as well as his grandchildren. Enlil, the chief of the expedition to Earth. Although he was the younger son of An, Enlil became the most powerful god of the Sumerian pantheon next to An, literally the Lord of the Command. Enlil was the commander of the expedition of the Anunnaki to Earth. He had many appellations which described his authority: Lord of heaven and earth, Lord of all the lands, giver of the kingships, Prince of heaven, and chief of earth. Enlil was actually the archetype for the god of the western lands of Palestine and Syria, the El of the Semites, and particularly the generic El or Elohim of the Bible. Enlil made sure that the decrees of the gods in council were carried out against mankind. He is often depicted with bow and arrow, symbolic of the powerful weapons at his disposal to enforce his authority. Enlil disliked mankind and only tolerated humans as necessary to provide for the welfare of the gods. It was Enlil, according to the Sumerian story of the deluge, who brought on the destruction of mankind because the noise of the boisterous humans interfered with his rest. The temple dedicated to him at Nippur was called the Duranki, or Bond of Heaven and Earth, from where he directed the activities of mankind. This structure is described in part in the cuneiform tablets as some type of communication or control center. From his temple atop the Ekr at Nippur, it was said that he had eyes that could scan the land. The equipment used sounds very much like some sort of radar or scanning device, for the tablets state that he raises the beams that search the heart of all lands. Enlil's rule was at times turbulent. One day, seeing a goddess naked and bathing by a stream on earth below, he became enamored of her and descended to seduce her. The pantheon was horrified at the escapade of Enlil, since it apparently abrogated one of their basic conventions: don't mess with the livestock. Although he was the chief god, he was exiled from the spaceship and stripped of his powers. Only after marrying and making her his chief wife did the pantheon relent and let Enlil return to resume his authority. Enlil named her Ninlil and gave her status equivalent to his own. The result of this episode was a son called Nanar, who became Enlil's favorite. Nanar was given rank in the pantheon second only to him and Enki, and honors and lands commensurate with his position. Enki, the chief operations officer. Although he was An's firstborn, Enki was given lower rank than his younger brother Enlil, who had been born to An by another wife, who was also his half-sister. By the laws of Sumerian inheritance, Enlil became heir to the throne. Lingering resentment over his disinheritance and the growing competition over who would control activities on earth brought Enki into direct conflict with his brother Enlil. Enki, or Lord of the Earth, was also called Ea, or he whose house is on the water, a tacit reference to his water place on Abzu, from where he carried out operations when he first arrived on Earth. Enki was all things to the expedition: chief engineer, chief scientist, chief of mining, and more importantly, the creator of mankind. As a master engineer, he supervised the turning of the marshlands of the lower Mesopotamia into a veritable paradise. He planned and supervised the construction of the canal system, the diking of the rivers, and the draining of the marshlands. In a self-laudatory poem, he boasts of making the marshlands a heaven for birds and fishes, of directing an invention and use of the plow and yoke, of starting animal husbandry and bringing the construction arts to earth in order to raise the cities. Enki had many epithets. He was the god of wisdom, the god of mining, the lord of the flowing waters, the lord of the sea and shipbuilding. He is often portrayed with a stream and fish flowing from his shoulders, symbolic of his capacity to provide navigable waters and to ensure potable water to the cities of Mesopotamia. His home was Eridu, that is, home built far away, a veiled reference to the fact that this was a colony, and Eridu was the first city built by the alien astronauts on Earth and was located on the edge of the water plain of Eden. Enki loved to go sailing or cruising on these various watercourses in his various watercraft, which he called the ibex, after the nimble goats which inhabited the surrounding mountains. In this way, the ibex and the goat with a fishtail became symbolic of the god Enki and appear often on Sumerian seals and monuments. As the god of mining, Enki is often shown with the human miner holding an ingot of metal on a carrying pole. Metal was molded this way in the form of a cylinder with a hole through the middle in order to facilitate its being carried on a pole with a handle. He is also shown at times with his two sons, Gibel and Nergal, who are in charge of mining activities. But most important of all, Enki is remembered as the god who created man and who came to his defense against the capricious Enlil. As the creator of man, he is often shown with the tree or shrub of life. The serpent was also Enki's symbol, presumably for its ability to shed its skin and therefore achieve a sort of immortality. The depiction of the serpent was one method the ancient artisans used to represent their reptile ancestors. It is also from this representation of the serpent coiled around the tree of life, or that the caduceus of the Greeks, that later evolved. And just as the capricious Enlil is remembered as the god who brought on the deluge, Enki is recognized as the one who saved mankind by his timely warning of the coming disaster to the Sumerian Noah. Enki's unauthorized creation of modern man, or Homo sapiens, further estranged him from Enlil. The antagonism between the two erupted again after the deluge among their children, who kept the Middle East in a state of turmoil for thousands of years. They're still fighting and will never stop fighting in that area. And this topic of Enlil and Enki, Enlil the good guy, Enki the bad guy, apparently it's never going to be resolved. The important thing to remember, I mean, I've seen Ishmael Perez correct Rex Bear maintaining that Enki, the light bringer, was the one who, the savior of mankind. But Ishmael Perez telling Rex Bear that no, the tablets were altered and it was, everything bad or has been made good. It's it seems like there's never really going to be resolved until, at least in my mind, it's really irrelevant at the end of the day, because they're both humans. They're not to be worshipped as gods. They're, like I said in earlier videos, they're fifth dimensional humans, with higher technology packages. And as long as you're operating from within your sovereign source center as a sovereign human, but it's good information. At least it destroys the narrative of what you've been taught in your Sunday school.
That Jesus is gonna come back and save you. Oh, Jesus!
Hit that subscribe button.
Namaste, namaskaram.